Welcome to Thrive Radio. I'm your host, Amy Montgomery, entrepreneur and digital marketing agency owner. Today, my guest is Chris Amendt. She's a visionary entrepreneur who turned her passion for conservation into a groundbreaking mission to save the iconic Monarch butterfly. After leaving the corporate medical world, Chris founded Native Monarchs, a nonprofit dedicated to restoring butterfly habitats, and later launched Monarch Botanika. It's a skincare brand that uses milkweed seed oil to blend beauty with environmental purpose. Her journey is one of resilience, innovation, and an unwavering commitment to creating a legacy that nurtures both nature and people. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Wow, thank you. I'm impressed of what I've just done.
So am I. So thank you so much for being on here. And, especially we were just talking prior to the podcast about all of the LA fires, and we've got so much to discuss in relation to nature and everything that's
Right?
going on. If you can let's start with your story, where you started. What inspired you to leave the medical industry and take on a mission to save monarch butterflies?
That's a good question. And thanks again for having me. I appreciate this to get this awareness out. I love this. But, actually, it's kind of mirroring 2020 when the pandemic started. And I think that's what kind of started this journey. Unfortunately, at the same time, we did have wildfires in California at the same time. So Northern California was burning. There was smoke everywhere. It was around the same time that the monarch migration is happening. So the monarch migration starts about October out here in California and lasts till about March or April. So when these monarchs are trying to get to their overwintering spot, if there's wildfires and smoke and all sorts of severe weather events, it really affects them. So I knew they were in trouble only because I've been a monarch gardener and basically a landscaper forever. But I've always gardened for monarchs. I've helped friends bring in wildlife into their backyard. And I saw basically the population just dropping, just the bottom dropping out of it, where I'd have 40 monarchs in my backyard, caterpillars on my milkweed, et cetera, and then the next couple of years, almost nothing. So that really told me at a time, especially when the pandemic was hitting, that they really needed help. I was able to, as the pandemic shut places down, like a golf course that I did some consulting work on, and I'm also a golfer, it shut down the golf course, so there's nobody on it. And I thought this is a great opportunity to take an out of play area and turn it into a monarch and pollinator habitat because there's no people around. I could get equipment out there. I didn't have to worry about golfers. And the golf course was nice enough to let me do it. So that was actually the turnaround, was getting a little piece of land, putting in a monarch and pollinator habitat, and immediately seeing the results, seeing the insects come in and seeing the birds come in, and then all other basically wildlife that was coming there for sanctuary. And it was a very small area. So that was kind of that was my aha moment that I needed to keep doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you've gone down this path of the conservation, and then you've moved into skincare.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that a weird one?
And let's talk a little bit about that journey, because it is a really interesting connection that you found, extremely innovative and an amazing way to support monarchs as well.
You know what? It was actually created out of necessity, and founding a new young nonprofit is harder than it seems. You can start it up, no problem. You can put your website out. It's raising money for a purpose and a cause, especially in conservation. There's so much out there, and people are very, I think, I don't want to say suspicious, but wary of brand new companies that don't have a history, and then they don't know where the money is going. So the transition, what I made, and I came across this, basically, this was completely accidental, is that I'm growing my own native milkweed in a greenhouse here in Camarillo, for these restoration sites. The milkweed plant is the only plant that the monarch butterfly can live on and survive on. Caterpillars can only eat milkweed. So when you don't have milkweed, you don't have a breeding site. So there wasn't enough native milkweed around here. I started growing it. Long story short, when the seeds that I was starting the plants with, when they start to get old and they start to get about 2 years old, they're not good enough to plant anymore. So I had this surplus of seed in the background, just kind of building, and being a self-proclaimed hoarder of a lot of stuff, I kept it, and I was trying to find I go, "Can I make a fertilizer out of it? Can I do something with it?" When I started grinding it up, there was an oily substance just naturally, like that seeds normally have. After I did a lot of research, I found that you can cold press these seeds, and I did some testing based, coming from my medical background, that it was a really great high omega fatty acid content moisturizing oil. So I did my tests, I made sure it wasn't toxic, and I'm like, "This is the way to get people's attention." If they just don't wanna donate just for the sake of conservation and that, let me give them something. Let me give them this premium, unique quality product that nobody's ever heard of before, but it comes directly from the plant that saves monarch butterflies, and then I give back to monarch conservation, and it seemed like this perfect scenario in this entrepreneurial world, but, what I didn't realize is the beauty industry is so competitive and so oversaturated that I feel like I'm lost in an ocean of product. But the one thing that I hope that I can still get the message across is that it was a product for a purpose to do something on a conservation level for wildlife and to make a difference. So I'm sticking by my message as hard as it is. It takes a lot of money, which I don't have, but I'm still trying to do it organically, word of mouth, hitting the ground running, going to little shops and vendor shows, and just trying to educate people at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. And in the beauty industry, especially online, I would say, and like it takes time. Like you've got to build the know, like, and trust. Know, like, and trust is built faster in person. But again, you mentioned kind of being in the LA area, and I actually was just talking to another business owner that launched, and I kind of think that that specific area, must be more difficult to launch.
I absolutely think so.
Yeah, and you kind of think, well, they have access to all of the top brands,
Right.
that are in the US anyway, and, probably some of the international ones as well. And so if you launch something new, they're probably gonna go with the brand name item, right? Versus maybe a different demographic might jump on it,
Yeah,
right?
and from an e-commerce platform, that a lot of people start on, you think, "Okay, I have this wide reach." But what I found is most of my sales come from in-person shows. So I'm out there, I've got booths, I put out the advertisements before, "I'm gonna be here, but I'm gonna talk about monarch conservation at the same time, so come on out, try the products, and ask me any questions about monarchs that you have." Those are, like, my people. Those people show up, they buy, they support. I guess it's just getting that message across from a website and from an e-commerce platform that really try to help people understand. But I think social media has been amazing that if I have more confidence in the beauty industry, I've got all the confidence in the world in the conservation. I can tell you about plants and bugs and nerd out about wildlife all day long. I'm not a beauty model, so I feel like, "Hey, here's my product's really good. Can you try it?" And I don't want to be on camera. So I need some blockbuster kind of person that really knows how to sell this stuff. I'm hoping they come to me.
I do that for some of my clients. They don't wanna be on social media
You
either.
can do it.
Well, and I just create, and you'll see, like, actually a lot of the brands that really actually succeed is they do just focus on stories and a little mini entertainment and all of that kind of stuff. They pick a theme and then they just go on it. So like for you, if everything was all Monarch Butterfly video and it's just focused on that, and then hey, here's the Monarch product, those types of things, entertainment probably would hit really well, but yeah, it's an interesting thing because I would say that 99.9% of people, businesses in the beauty industry, all do social media wrong and they fail at it. And they think, "Oh, I'm just going to post," and they don't understand why. So they'll post an image of their product, nobody cares.
Yeah.
And we do this across every single, I don't wanna go on a rant now, but we do this across every single, business as well, where
Okay.
we all, no matter what it could be my marketing stuff. It could be somebody else as a leadership coach and it's their cool services. It could be somebody over here with a physical product that, "Oh, this is just the most amazing thing." And we get into the science and we get into the ingredients and we get, what do you get? Nobody cares, right? If I went out there and I was like, "Oh, you get my spreadsheet with data." I don't care about that, right? That might be something I'm super passionate about, which I am, but nobody cares,
I
right? They want the result. They want that
exactly.
transformation, right? So it's the same thing that we all like. You have to separate what you're passionate about with what everyone else that's going to buy from you is passionate about. And that's the challenge.
It's a challenge. I'm learning. I'm trying to switch it up, and, hopefully, you've given me a lot of advice as far as, trying a different approach to it. I'm a scientist. I mean, I come from a scientific background. I like very A, B, C, D. A lot of people aren't like that. So, but what I am is I'm passionate about it. I'm motivated, and I really wanna help this movement,
Yeah.
and I wanna offer this quality product. I'm not just trying to throw something together and just go, "Oh, it saves the butterflies." This oil is actually, if I could get people to understand it, it could be a changer as far as one of the oils that we have that would actually incentivize people to plant this more of this plant for monarch butterflies. If I show a commercial success, and this is not like we're not gonna, like, over harvest it, it's gonna be responsibly harvested. If I show a commercial success for a new raw material, more people are apt to plant it, and the best thing about it is you can actually harvest the seed and not destroy the habitat, so the habitat stays intact, and actually it's more of like a PR thing for them, because if you have a farmer or you have a commercial area and you have monarch butterflies coming in and you're saying, "Oh, yeah, this is the seed we harvest," but for most of the year or maybe half of the year, it's a breeding habitat for monarch butterflies, you've got a double win right there.
Yeah.
So that's what I can, and I can help people on that planting part, because those are the experimental things I've been doing that
Yeah.
nobody else is really doing out here in California.
Yeah. And I would say this is your products feel like you're at a spa. They smell like a spa.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that was my first, like, yeah, you had when you had talked to me about it initially, you're like, yeah, it kind of wakes, like wakes you up or whatever. Like it has that eucalyptus type, you
Right.
know, and so it feels like it smells like a spa, feels like you're in a spa, and it is very, very moisturizing,
Mhm.
and you feel like I almost got the sense of I thought, well, it's winter, and I was like, this is really good for winter because it's kind of like it almost feels like it's protecting you.
Glad you think so. It's the oil is especially good only because it doesn't feel greasy
Yeah,
or turn tacky or sticky, and it's good that you're trying it in places where it gets a little colder, because, I mean, if we're in Southern California, a lot of times it doesn't get that cold where people say, "Oh, I really need this extra moisturizing, almost like Vaseline kinda thing to protect me," but I'm 100% convinced it's the chemical composition of this oil. When you press these seeds, you don't get a lot of oil, so you need a lot of these old seeds, but this oil goes a long way. I mean, you don't have to use much to either cover your whole face, your hands. I mean, I've
yeah.
actually people are buying it for a whole body moisturizer. Guys are stealing it from their wives for hand cream. So I'm like, "Hey, however you wanna use it, just use it." I'm good with
It smells good. It's a good experience, and then yeah, it really does. You feel like
awesome.
you've got the lotion on and it's protecting versus if I put just like a regular lotion on, well, it soaks in and then like where did it go?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? But it
exactly,
doesn't have like the greasiness of like a Vaseline type of a thing, right?
right.
Not that
E
heavy greasy.
Even the cleanser, when you put oil in the cleanser, which you still feel like you as a wash off, you tend in the beauty industry, you tend to put less oil in cleansers because it's a wash off, right? You just put it on, take it off. You can actually feel the oil that's still on your face, and that the cleanser is actually one of the more unique products that I think, and people are like, "Oh, no, I have a cleanser," but if you try it, there's a big difference between you feel there's something on your skin afterwards.
Yeah. Suck you dry.
And that could be a really good thing for, hair products. So if you put it in a shampoo and conditioner, I think you could really get a really good moisturizing effect for hair, which if I can keep this going, if I can sell out this first batch of inventory, I can work on different products very easily.
Yeah.
I own the formulas, so I can change the formulas very easily into other ones.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's for the future, but, just gotta keep pressing on and sell the inventory that I have right now, and every business owner knows this. You can't sit with a warehouse full of stuff and not move it and try to do more stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're also like in that what I call the 5 year of suck. It's the first 5 years.
I call it the undertow.
Right? I actually wrote a book outline. I was thinking about writing a book on how I survived the 5 years.
As
The
I'd read it.
guide for bootstrapping your business is what but I have a yeah, we'll see if I finish that, but, you
Yeah,
know, everyone kinda goes through it, and it really is a 5-year suck. Sometimes it's a little bit longer.
yeah. I'm about year if you think about it, in the business sense, when I finally got the product out, I'm probably in year 2 and a half, 3.
Okay, yeah, so you're almost and I feel like it's like that it incorporates sort of the personal growth in it too, because it takes like, at least for me, I changed my niche, and it wasn't until I changed my niche that my business exploded, but I was so hard-headed, I wanted a certain group of people to want what I had to offer, and when I actually went to the people that actually wanted what I offer, whoa, big change.
For real? Okay.
I don't know why I hit against the brick wall for so long. And I think that that is half the battle right there is finding the people that actually want it
Yeah.
and sticking with them versus trying to convince.
A good point, because I always thought these people will run to me because I've got this, this is what I envision, this is what they probably want, and it just hasn't been that. So that's actually great advice to kinda, find and you know what? Actually, it's been interesting. It hasn't been like, a demographic of older women who love to garden or out there. I mean, young men that and young people that love wildlife and conservation and nature, and there's whole movement about that, and that want a clean brought beauty product, plant-based. That younger demographic is the one I think that, I'm getting a lot more interest from too.
Yeah, it makes sense. And there's a lot more emotion attached to that too, to get
Yeah.
attention around, be part of the solution. Lynn, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about the monarch butterfly,
Yep.
their decline, and also let's talk a little bit what's happening with the fires in California right now, and why was it important for you to champion their cause?
Importing or, being, very proactive about their cause is really important if you just look at the population numbers of the migrating monarchs, and if you look at the chart, started at in 1997 at millions and millions of butterflies, and basically the chart is just a downward arrow, almost to the point where in 2020, we thought maybe they might be endangered. They might be at a number that's endangered, but they're not officially called endangered. So this is how I needed to get this kind of message across because I talk to people all the time about monarchs and they're so confused. They're like, are they endangered? Are they not endangered? Are they threatened? Nobody knows. So I think the important thing to realize is monarch butterfly has never been considered endangered in the United States by Fish and Wildlife Services. And that is the governing body that determines wildlife and whether they're threatened, endangered. So if you go to any conservation area, zoos and things like that, they'll have little tags on it, whether it's threatened, not a problem, endangered, extinct, things like that. So that was part of the message one is get the right information out there.
Mm.
For the last couple of years, the numbers have been so low that Fish and Wildlife have admitted that the numbers are low enough to consider the monarch threatened, but we've got so many other species that are having worse problems. We're going to table it and we're going to come back in 2024 and make a decision. So, because of that delay, that 4-year delay, Fish and Wildlife was actually sued by 2 or 3 organizations, conservation organizations, to make a decision. They're like, the numbers are going down so fast, you can't wait anymore. And they won. And part of a court settlement was that by the end of 2024, they had to make some kind of ruling for the monarch butterfly, for the migration, for the western and the eastern, that determines what their next step was going to be. So last month, it's a proposal. So it's not, don't declare it immediately. It's a proposal to list the monarch butterfly as threatened. And that is what came out. In order to get to that final listing, it goes through a 90-day public comment period where they have meetings, people voice their opinions, why it should be or why it should not be, and then they don't make a decision to 1 year, so the end of 2025. So right now we're in the midst of it. This week, actually, they had 2 Fish and Wildlife meetings where they were 3 hours long. I mean, they actually did a really good job getting public opinion people who wanted to talk about monarchs. A lot of interest was in commercial butterfly breeding and the number that's limiting them. So in other states, in California, you can't touch, rear, or do anything in California without a scientific collection permit, but in other states you can.
Okay.
So there's people that they're butterfly farmers and they make livings at it. So when they're kind of like telling them you can only have 250, I think that worries them a bit that it's impacting their business. But as far as that goes, then we're pretty much waiting the whole year, but what I'm doing right now is continuing to plant habitat because I know they're in trouble. The fires definitely did not help. Fire a lot of times can, at least in big open plains and when you have prairies and things like that, fire can actually be a rejuvenating thing for a lot of plants. You know, you burn the top of it. Native plants often live underneath the ground, so you're not killing the entire plant, and then a lot of times it rests, comes back a lot stronger. In Southern California, we are so many houses and there's so much development and agricultural expansion. We don't have a lot of open fields where milkweed grows. So it has to be a very purposeful movement in where we're going to put habitat at and how we're going to do it. So that's what I've kind of learned. It's like I can take somebody's landscape and say, even if it's a 10 by 10 space, I can make a really well functioning breeding site for monarch butterflies. But it's kind of funny is that if you do it one way or the other, if you plant too many milkweed, then you're inviting all the predators in to come and pick off your monarchs and your caterpillars. So there's a lot of science involved and how diversity helps ecosystems and how you have to kind of redesign it. So I'm hoping with these fires, when people go back and they start doing their landscaping, I mean, rebuilding is going to be the biggest part, but a lot of people that say maybe they just had landscape damage. Putting back the landscape is going to be essential for wildlife and for monarchs and pollinators because if you do it right, you can not only have something that looks great, is functional, helping the wildlife, but actually you can incorporate a fire resistant landscaping as well with the use of succulents and rocks and things like that. So you can create a barrier around your house, especially if you're on the hillsides, which a lot of Southern California homes are. But that's another message that I'm trying to get out there, and I give presentations on how to do this. I go to nurseries, talk to people, and I give them my layouts and my plant list. You know, I'm not charging anything, for this information. I just give them my best nectar plants and what they need, and I go from there. If they wanna hire me and landscape their land, that's one thing, but really my purpose is landscaping for life and not just looks when it
Yeah.
comes to.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. And you kind of see that with some of the people that their homes ended up surviving. Like there's just something in the landscape that just cut it off.
Yeah, it kinda depends on where the house is positioned
Yeah.
and the winds, you know, I mean, there is no fireproof house in winds that are sustained 60, 70 miles an hour. I mean, it can be fire resistant, but a lot of times if these embers are just getting up in the attics, you know, your landscaping's not gonna really help it, but the clearing of a lot of these places, when they say the 100-foot defensible space, and you go in and you just basically cut everything down and it's just dirt. Well, the first rains that you get, the invasive grasses and the invasive weeds, they're the ones that are gonna grow. So
Yeah.
then they grow fast, and then all of a sudden, if you don't cut those down, there's a wildfire. That's the flash fire stuff that that just basically travels at these terrible, terrible speeds. If you
Yeah.
have native plants, you have succulents and something that can kinda slow it down, that can definitely help. So I'm trying to educate more people about that.
Yeah. That makes sense. So let me ask you this because you started your business during the pandemic and
Ugh, bad
you,
bad decision.
uh, what has been your truth that has gotten you this far in your journey?
Oh gosh, resilience is one, but purpose. I came from working a corporate job for since I've been out of school, and I told myself if I was gonna start a business, I was gonna start any kind of something where I didn't work for somebody else. It was gonna have a purpose, and I was gonna try sounds corny, but it's true. I was gonna try to leave the planet better than the way I found it. So if I can do that, and I found this niche where the monarch butterflies and pollinators in general needed help, that's what kept me going. It's because it's like working with working with shelter animals. They're wildlife. When you're doing wildlife rehab, they're kind of helpless in our world. It's their backyard, but we've taken it over. So what I wanted to do is stick to that mission, be ethical, obviously not harm the planet anymore just to make a buck, but really have a purpose and a good purpose to continue my business.
That. I have one more question for you. If you're able to give yourself one piece of advice when you first started out in your journey, what would it be?
Oh, I guess don't try to do too much too fast. I go nuts. There's a somebody told me once I had shiny object syndrome. And that was like, something looks good over here. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. That basically scatters you. I think focus is the key. And during the pandemic, I started my manufacturing, and it wasn't the week that after that I started, they shut down manufacturing all over the country. So when you talk about having to pivot, that actually me being so scatterbrained actually helped because I couldn't I had to run over and I couldn't find a cap for my tubes because everybody was shut down. So having the ability to multitask and focus is the key. Focus on one thing at a time and get it done because I focused on a lot of stuff, got about 70% done before I skipped to the next one. And everything was kind of like in partial finished states. So I think
Yeah,
that would be a good one. Finish it first and then move on to the next one.
yeah, I like that. Mastering the one thing. Like I kind of did that too in my business. When I first started out, I didn't know what I was going to offer. I didn't know what people wanted, what they needed. Long term, mastering the one thing has also I can reiterate that is because I tend to do it too. Like
Yeah.
I'm off on writing unpublished books for people. I'm gonna do that, and then I mean the next thing I'll do bestsellers because I used to have to do that for TV. Like
Uh-huh.
I'd make a fake book and they'd have a fake cover that I glued on another book, and they're like, "This is my best selling book," and then I had to write it. And, we would do that, and, there's a little science behind that of harnessing, the books like The Secret and all that, they're all written from the same old books that are copyright free, and
Yeah.
so I would just do the same thing, just take the same books, and there you go. But, anyway, I had this big idea, and it's like, "Kill the rabbit."
And when it doesn't kill us, makes us stronger, I guess.
Like maybe someday, but not now. Yeah. So if there are people that are interested in both of your beauty product and also what you're doing to as far as monarch conservation, what's the best way to contact you?
Well, I have 2 websites. So the first website for conservation is nativemonarchs.org. So you can go there, you can kinda see the plight of what's happening with monarchs. They're in crisis, they need our help, and there's a lot of resources there as far as you can contact me, you can contact other nurseries in your area and get information on plants and things that you can help create their habitat and also protect their habitat, their existing habitat. As far as the beauty products and the milkweed seed oil line, that is at monarchbotanika.com, and that's Botanica with a K. That also it's a Shopify platform, it's my e-commerce platform, but I actually integrated a lot of conservation in there as well. I think I just did a revamp for the website, so it's a really good place where you can really navigate easily, where if you just wanna go look at products right there. If you want to find out more about what's happening with the monarchs and the blogs that I'm writing, I do updates all the time with all the fish and wildlife updates and basically what's happening with the population, and then share information across the board there too. So that's at monarchbotanica.com. But so people realize is that 5% of all my sales goes directly back to monarch conservation. So that was the whole purpose, was to try to fund conservation mission and movement, and it goes directly back to the nonprofit. And I am out in the field, I am boots on the ground. I am finding people that want to give me parts of their land here in Southern California when land is so expensive and create monarch sanctuaries that they're going to protect. I vet these people a lot, not just in schools and things like that, but people that are especially farmers, organic farmers that don't spray, those are gonna be the stewards of the land because they're growing things without chemicals and without fertilizers, and they're not spraying pesticides. Those are kinda like the people that I want to focus on, like I can put a hedgerow, pollinator, and monarch sanctuary on the perimeter of your land. Not only does it bring in pollinators, help your crops, but it also provides a sanctuary for insects that they can live and be protected. And as long as you take care of it, it will be there and sustainable for years to come.
Of that. Chris, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your expertise.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been great. And thank you for all your advice too. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're listening, you want more information about this podcast and upcoming shows, you can visit a call to thrive.com. Thank you, everyone, and have